Here's the thing about relationships that nobody really talks about. There's a whole conversation happening that never gets spoken out loud. You think you're doing everything right, being a good guy, treating her well, but somehow you're missing something. You can feel it, but you can't quite put your finger on what it is. You're not alone. Most men are operating on partial information. They're guessing. They're repeating what other guys told them. They're doing what worked for their dad 30 years ago. And then they wonder why things feel off, why the spark fades, why she seems distant even though nothing obvious is wrong. Here's what I've learned after talking to countless women who finally felt comfortable being brutally honest. There are things they wish you'd do, things they desperately want, but they'll almost never directly ask for them. Not because they're playing games, not because they want to keep you confused, but because asking for these things can feel vulnerable, or because they lose their magic if you have to be told. So today, we're pulling back the curtain. We're talking about 7 things that women respond to deeply but rarely vocalize. Some of this might challenge what you think you know. Some of it might make you uncomfortable. But if you're serious about understanding what actually makes relationships work, you need to hear this. Let's get into it. Look, most guys grow up hearing the same message on repeat. Real men don't cry. Real men don't show weakness. Real men tough it out. So you learn to bottle everything up. You put on that stoic face and pretend nothing bothers you. But here's what actually happens in relationships. When you refuse to share what you're feeling, you create distance. Your partner can sense something's off, but you won't talk about it. She's left guessing, filling in the blanks with her own anxieties. That gap between you two, it just keeps growing. Women aren't asking you to break down crying every day or become overly emotional about everything. That's not what this is about. They want to know the real you. When something bothers you, when you're scared about a decision, when you're proud of something you accomplished, when you miss someone, when you're dealing with stress at work, these are all parts of being human. Think about the men women actually admire in real life. They're not emotionless robots. They're guys who can have real conversations. They can say, "I'm worried about my dad's health," or "I felt really proud when I finished that project," without it being awkward. They don't hide behind walls. There's this weird paradox that happens. Guys think showing emotion makes them look weak, but women see it completely differently. When you can be honest about your feelings, it shows confidence. You're secure enough in yourself that you don't need to pretend. You trust her enough to let her see you. The strongest relationships happen when both people feel safe being real. When you open up, you give her permission to do the same. You create actual intimacy, not just surface-level connection. That's what separates relationships that last from ones that eventually fall apart. You can't build something meaningful with someone who won't let you see who they really are. There's this pattern that happens all the time. In the beginning, you're on fire. You're texting her good morning, planning creative dates, bringing her favorite snacks, complimenting her randomly. You're putting in effort because you want to win her over. Then she becomes your girlfriend and something shifts. You got what you wanted, so the effort drops. The texts become routine. Date nights turn into Netflix on the couch. You stop noticing her new haircut. You forget to tell her she looks beautiful. From your perspective, nothing changed. You still care about her. But from her perspective, it feels like the moment she committed to you, you stopped trying. Like she was a prize to be won. And now that you've won, the game is over. Women don't stop wanting to feel desired just because they're in a relationship. They want to know you still choose them, that you're still excited about them, that they're not just comfortable furniture in your life, but someone you actively want to be with. This shows up in small ways. Kiss her like you mean it, not just a peck before work. Actually plan a date instead of asking what she wants to do. Send her that random text saying you're thinking about her. Notice when she puts in extra effort with how she looks. Think about it from her angle. She's still doing her hair, putting on makeup, trying to look good for you. She's still thinking about what makes you happy. If that effort only flows one direction, resentment builds. She starts to feel taken for granted. The men who have incredible long-term relationships understand this. They never stop dating their partners. 5 years in, 10 years in, they're still making her feel special. Not because they have to, but because they genuinely want to keep that spark alive. Picture this. She comes home and starts telling you about her terrible day. Her coworker took credit for her idea. Her boss was being unreasonable, and she's just frustrated. Your brain immediately goes into problem-solving mode. Have you tried talking to HR? Why don't you document everything? Maybe you should. And you see her face change. She gets quieter. Maybe she says, never mind, or forget it. You're confused because you were just trying to help. But that's not what she needed. Men are wired to fix things. It's how we show we care. Something's broken, we figure out how to repair it. Someone has a problem, we offer solutions. That's our love language. But women often process emotions differently. When she's venting, she's not necessarily looking for answers. She might already know what she needs to do. What she wants is for you to understand how she feels. She wants validation that her emotions make sense. She wants you to be present with her in that frustration. Try this instead. Listen without planning your response. Let her finish completely. Then say something like, "That sounds really frustrating," or, "I can see why that upset you." Match her emotion. If she's angry, acknowledge that anger. Don't minimize it or rush to fix it. Sometimes all she needs is to be heard. The act of talking through it out loud with someone who cares is how she processes. Your presence and empathy matter more than your advice. Now, if she specifically asks, "What should I do?" then yes, offer suggestions. But wait for that invitation. Don't assume every shared problem is a request for solutions. This takes practice because it goes against your instincts. You'll want to jump in with answers. But learning to just listen, to just be there, creates a deeper connection than any advice ever could. There's a fine line here that a lot of guys miss. Being protective and being possessive might look similar on the surface, but they come from completely different places and feel entirely different to women. Possessiveness comes from insecurity and control. It's telling her what to wear because you don't trust other guys. It's checking her phone. It's getting jealous when she talks to male coworkers. It's isolating her from friends. That's not protection. That's control dressed up as care. Women can smell this from a mile away, and it's a massive red flag. Protective energy is different. It comes from genuine care without trying to control her choices. It's walking on the street side of the sidewalk. It's making sure she texts you when she gets home late so you know she's safe. It's standing up when someone disrespects her or crosses a boundary. It's being aware of her surroundings when she might not be. Think about it this way. Possessiveness says, "You're mine and I don't want anyone else near you." Protection says, "I want you to feel safe and I've got your back." One restricts her freedom, the other supports it. Women are fully capable of taking care of themselves. They don't need a bodyguard or a father figure. But there's something comforting about being with someone who's attentive to potential dangers, who'll step in if needed, who makes her feel like she has a partner watching out for her well-being. It shows up in how you respond to situations. If a guy's being creepy at a bar, protective means staying close and helping her exit the situation. Possessive means starting a fight because that's my girl. See the difference? The key is respect. Protective behavior respects her autonomy and supports her safety. Possessive behavior disrespects her independence and tries to own her. One builds trust, the other destroys it. Women notice everything. They remember that conversation you had 3 months ago where you mentioned you wanted to learn guitar. They know your favorite meal, how you take your coffee, what stresses you out at work. They're paying attention constantly because that's how they show love. When you do the same back, it hits different. She casually mentions she's been craving those specific cookies from that bakery across town. 2 days later, you show up with them. You didn't make a big deal about it. You just remembered and acted on it. That moment tells her, you matter enough to me that I actually listen. This isn't about grand romantic gestures or expensive gifts. It's about the tiny details that prove you're present. She mentioned her best friend is going through a breakup. You ask how her friend is doing a week later. She's stressed about a work presentation on Thursday. You text her that morning, wishing her luck without her having to remind you. Most guys hear things but don't retain them. They're physically there but mentally elsewhere. So when information comes up later, they've got nothing. Wait, when did you tell me that? Becomes a recurring theme. And each time it happens, she feels a little less seen. Think about how you feel when someone remembers something important to you without you having to bring it up again. It feels good, right? Like you actually matter to that person. That's exactly how she feels when you remember her favorite flower isn't roses, it's peonies. When you grab her usual order without asking. When you remember her mom's name and ask about her. Your attention is one of the most valuable things you can give. When you remember the small things, you're proving your attention isn't just surface level. You're actually engaged in her life, not just occupying space in it. Here's something that sounds backwards, but it's true. The fastest way to lose attraction in a relationship is to become whatever you think she wants you to be. You start saying yes to everything. You drop your hobbies because she's not into them. You stop seeing your friends as much. You agree with her opinions even when you don't actually agree. You think you're being a good boyfriend by being accommodating, but what actually happens is you become boring. You lose the edge, the personality, the independence that made you interesting in the first place. She fell for the guy who had his own life, his own opinions, his own passions, not a mirror that just reflects whatever she says. Women test boundaries sometimes, not because they're manipulative, but because they want to know you have a backbone. When you say no to something that doesn't work for you, when you stand firm on something you believe in, when you call her out respectfully if she's being unfair, you're showing strength. You're showing you value yourself. Think about the people you respect most in your life. Are they pushovers who never disagree with anyone? Or are they people with clear values who aren't afraid to stand by them? The same applies in relationships. Respect comes from having standards. This doesn't mean being stubborn or difficult just to prove a point. It means knowing who you are and not abandoning that for anyone. Keep your gym routine. Maintain your friendships. Pursue your career goals. Have opinions and express them, even if they're different from hers. A healthy relationship is two whole people choosing each other, not one person dissolving into the other. When you maintain your sense of self, you bring more to the relationship. You're not clingy or dependent. You're a partner with your own value, your own life, your own respect. That's attractive because it's real. Look, if you take nothing else from this, understand this. None of these 7 things are about playing games or using tricks. They're about being a better, more aware partner. They're about showing up as your authentic self while genuinely caring about the person you're with. Women aren't these mysterious creatures with impossible standards. They want what most people want: to feel valued, understood, and chosen. The difference is, they don't always say it directly. Sometimes because it feels vulnerable, sometimes because they want these things to come naturally. Sometimes because they don't even fully realize what they're looking for until they see it. Being emotionally honest, taking initiative, continuing to pursue her, listening without fixing, protecting without controlling, remembering the details, maintaining your own identity. These aren't separate tactics. They're all pieces of the same picture. They all say, I see you, I value you, and I'm willing to put in effort. The guys who figure this out don't have perfect relationships, but they have real ones. They have partnerships built on genuine understanding instead of guesswork. They have women who feel appreciated, which makes those women want to appreciate them back. That's how healthy relationships work. So stop overthinking it. Stop trying to crack some code. Just be present. Be thoughtful. Be yourself while genuinely caring about her experience. Pay attention to what matters to her and show up consistently, not just when it's convenient. These 7 things aren't a checklist to complete. They're a mindset to adopt. When you approach relationships with this level of awareness and effort, everything changes, not just for her, but for you too. Because relationships built on this foundation are the ones worth having.